If you are deconstructing, one of my first pieces of advice to you would be to remember the Bible is not a monolith. It's hundreds upon hundreds of writers, scribes, and redactors, all with free will and their own agendas. Many times the Bible doesn't reconcile itself, but people weren't bothered about it. Most of what we have learned was developed by white guys hundreds of years after the supposed death of Jesus, using apologetics to reconcile the mistakes and fill in the gaps. What you've learned about the New Testament, I think you should just throw it away. Like the relationship between Paul and Luke, those two guys, those two authors, they didn't know each other. The copies of Paul's letters that we have, remember that's what we have is copies. Only one time does he mention a guy named Luke in Philemon 1 verses 24. That's it. He's not a physician. All other mentions of Luke are not authored by Paul. They simply use his name. If we are to believe the author of Luke Acts, then Paul died at over 60 years of age. Luke, the supposed peer of Paul, was using the works of Josephus, the historian, in the 90s or later. That would mean that the author of Luke would have to be at least 80 to 90 years old when they were writing. Now, of course, that's plausible, but I don't believe the author of Luke knew Paul in real life. For instance, Matthew, Mark, and John, their Gospels do not mention Paul, Luke, or Barnabas, because again, they were never there, or so insignificant. Paul admits that he converts and then travels off to visit Arabia and Damascus. All the while, he gets revelations from God about Jesus. None of what he has learned has come from Jesus or his disciples. Paul stays in Jerusalem for 2 weeks where he meets James and Peter, and it doesn't go well. After 14 years, Paul returns, and he and Barnabas are allegedly given the right hand of fellowship by James, Cephas, and John. But if Paul has this amazing conversion story that everyone is talking about because he was persecuting them, but is now an apostle, like it says in Galatians, you would think that he'd at least get an honorable mention by one of the gospel writers who was in Jesus' inner circle. Crickets. Maybe this is because Paul twists the Torah to fit his agenda and the disciples know it. Paul doesn't use the term disciple, almost as if he's acknowledging that he believes it's not important to have heard Jesus' teaching straight from his lips. The New Testament should be called the Testament of hundreds of dudes' opinions instead of New Testament. Just my opinion.